Welcome to Abiding Commentaries with Jonathan Wimmick, and as I said, this would be day one. There was a story here about my wife. So this is day one. It's a sea day. So the first day of the full day of the cruise, we sailed out port. We've had our Miami experience, and we're the morning. You can definitely tell when you were in bed that the boat was rocking, and you knew that the seas were rough. Fortunately, we had a balcony as well, so we could tell the seas were pretty rough. In fact, at one point, I went to the back of the ship where I could see the part that sticks out where the crew work, and you could just see it up and down. In the video portion, I'll put a clip of that in there where you can see the seas were rough that day. That's the point I'm telling you. So it's breakfast time, and so we're on our spot in the deck, and 2 tables over to us, a couple is trying to have breakfast, and you described what she was kind of looking like.
Yeah, she was just kind of sitting there, slouched down, she had her hood up, dark glasses, and just kind of looking pale and like she was struggling. Okay,
so we noticed her. Now, here's the backstory to this whole moment. Kim's issue, like I mentioned, mine has been chronic pain. For a long time I've been dealing. Now, Kim is younger than me. Actually, she's several years younger than me. And all of her life, she has also been dealing with a particular issue. So I'll let her describe that particular challenge.
Okay, so for as long as I can remember, I don't even remember this happening, but apparently sometime when I was in elementary school, like lower elementary school, some kid or multiple kids threw up in class, and that just set me on a trajectory of being completely terrified of anybody who threw up. It's just been a physical reaction inside of me that it's almost like an anxiety attack, that I have a physical reaction to anybody. If I even think they're gonna throw up, I just freak out.
And you were talking about even as a kid, your sister would start telling them about.
So like when we would go on road trips or something, my sister would sometimes pretend like she was going to throw up just to mess with me. And I would like literally freak out, like, get me out of here, and like be screaming and crying. So it's
a big deal.
Yeah.
So her greatest fear by far. And the interesting thing about it is what is so terrifying for her, because being a person who struggles with chronic pain, having a special needs kid, which I already told you about the reason we're on a 25, I throw up quite a bit. Lucas threw up quite a bit when he was a kid. And the weird part is she could come clean it up if we were having trouble, but she could not be anywhere around it while it was happening. So listen, ladies, there's no way she's going to pull her hair back.
Hold your hair
in the toilet. No. If you start puking and she's your best friend, she's out of there. Well, at least that's what I thought. Until you're done, and then she'll come back in and support you. Okay, so have that backdrop to this moment that's about to happen. All right. So we're sitting there, each other. We're on the deck, and we notice this lady. And it's clear she's in trouble. And for those of us that were on the cruise, we know the funny story that everybody is giving antidotes of what to cure seasickness. We're way past patches and bracelets to apples that are green to different kinds of foods, to looking at the horizon, to any antidote that could give this poor lady. So she's trying everything over there, but it's not working. Well, actually, she did start eating for a little while, which I was like, oh no, this is not going to work. So it starts happening. She begins, now she's at the front of the table, and where she was standing, there was a bar over here. So it was a narrow part of the deck where people were walking by left and right. And so she just started going. And she started having a moment there on the deck by her. Well, actually, she was with her husband when she started. Now, as she starts vomiting, how are you doing?
Good.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay. As she starts, then her husband goes to go get some help. So I do want to say, if he ever does watch this video, move a little quicker next time. That's all I'm saying. All right. So he goes off to try to get some help for her. So I look over at her, and to my utter amazement, I didn't realize it at the time, she's still sitting here. Now, normally what would happen if she were having a moment like this is she would get up and leave. So.
And I think at that time, when you looked at me, I was just like, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. But I was still sitting there.
Yep.
So.
In fact, I remember saying, don't go, don't go. We can work through this. For the first time in her life, she was going to sit there and work through this. But it was going to even get better, because in that moment, I looked over to her, and I don't think I asked her the first time. I just got up.
You said, I'm going to go.
I said, I'm going to go. And I walked over to this lady, and I put my body in front of her so to block the people that were walking by so they didn't have to watch her. Put my hands on her, began to pray for her, cover her, help her get through the vomiting. So then her husband comes back, and so I leave and go back over to the table, and she's freaking out. But I think I noticed that time that you actually stayed and were working through it. And here's the thing that you need to hear. Man, you got to hear this. People think because they're struggling still that they're not getting victory. You are getting victory. I was telling her this as she's sitting there having this victorious moment, and all she can think about is, but I'm still feeling anxious, but I'm still feeling anxiety, but I still feel like I want to run. I said, yeah, but you didn't. You didn't. So, about that point in the conversation, our little friend over here, oh, she starts going again. She starts having another moment. In fact, she never really moved from the spot, so she's still facing the pathway, and so she's having her moment. And sure enough, her husband gets up again and goes to find help. So I guess he didn't get help, or he didn't find, or maybe somebody was coming. So he goes off again. So I'm like, what is up with this guy going off, leaving his wife puking? So at this time, I asked, can I go? You can go. So I go back over again, and I start praying for her, protecting her. Actually, this time I gathered some of those blue cloths, and I covered it up so that everybody couldn't see it as they were walking by. Then that's when the people around her started to gather. But here's also what I felt incredibly sad about, is that there were lots of other people around her. And again, I think often people don't know what to do, so we don't do anything. But I would say do something rather than do nothing. So I come back over to Kim at this point, and I haven't had my moment yet, so I'm fine. So now let's deal with her. So I turn to her, and I start asking her to deal with this issue, which we've tried to work through this vomiting thing before, and it's not been something she wanted to deal with. So I asked her, I said, all right, I want you to picture this for me. And I want you to picture this for me. And it's not a pretty picture, so it's going to be gross. So just prepare yourself. Here it comes. All right. So imagine like one of those beautiful pools in the Bachelorette franchise. You know that pool they got back there? And imagine they got like 8 people on each side of it, like little statues of live people. Yeah, and they're vomiting into the pool. All right? And now the pool is not a blue luxurious lagoon. No. No, that thing's filled with vomit. The disgustingest, most vile vomit you've ever seen in your life, Kim. So I want you to picture this, Kim. You are standing on the edge of a pool full of vomit with 8 beautiful ladies vomiting into the pool. And God is on the other side of that vomiting pool. And he says, Kim, come to me. I want you to jump into the waters and swim to me. I turned to her at that moment and said, what is your answer?
In tears and panic attack. I was like, no way. No way.
Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance.
And I was just thinking about it was giving me anxiety and tears and everything. It was like, no way.
So fast forward now to day 2 of the cruise where I had my moment. It is through my moment that I saw what God was doing the day before. It took me a day to pick up that God was actually working. So for all of you on the Family Life Marriage Cruise 2024, the reason that day one was so violent and you were all feeling terrible and puking is because of my wife.
For me.
God loves you. God loved her so much that he was willing to cause the whole cruise to go into a vomiting fit for her. So my moment happens on the second day of the cruise. The third day of the cruise, now it's evening time. And I've asked this question of her a couple more times at this point, maybe just kind of in passing. Like, so are you ready to deal with God on this issue or not? Because the whole conference is about stuff like this, right? Surrendering, being unoffendable, just really being raw and bare and empty. And so by the night of Wednesday night, she wasn't. And so I said, all right, tell you what, go spend some time alone. So this is what I would also say about those of you on the cruise. Go spend some time alone. Don't be involved in all the teaching and all the conference. Go spend time with God to absorb it into your soul. So that's what I said. I asked her to do. So she came, I don't know, it was about 45 minutes or an hour. It really wasn't, I mean, it was long, but it wasn't like days like it has been. So she finally came back. Well, why don't you just describe what happened and what that was, because I haven't even really heard that. So how did you get from the place where you were willing to deal with finally this issue? What was it?
Just being able to spend time and just be still and listen. I just kept hearing, trust me, trust me. And that was mainly a lot of it. I was reading the Bible and stuff, but it just kept coming back to trusting him.
So then a couple days later, and this is where we'll close our little 12.5 minute at this point video. Later on, I realized that the picture that I was painting for her wasn't the accurate picture. And it took a couple days to realize, because when she came back to me on that, I guess that would have been Wednesday night then?
I can't remember that. Yeah.
So Wednesday night, she finally comes back and says, okay. You know, I feel like it's that moment in Polar Express, right? Where he's holding the bell in his hand, and Santa Claus, who, I won't go there, is behind him. He can't see him, right? He can't see him in the reflection yet, right? And he's got to answer the question before he sees the truth. And that's where God takes us, right? He wants us to see him before he reveals himself to us. I believe. So she said, yes, I will come. It'll be disgusting. It will be gross. I won't want to do it, but I will.
If it means getting to him.
If it means getting to him. So I said, you know, the picture is more like this. And this is the encouragement I would say to you in your pain or your anxiety. I don't know what your issue is. There's one more story. My son's when we get home, but we'll tell that later. So the truth of the matter is there has to come that moment where you're willing to say, yes, I will. And then I said to her, well, here's the better picture, right? Take that same scenario, 8 pretty ladies, pull of vomit. And then God says to you, dive in head first. And so I saw Kim diving in head first. And as her hands hit the water, it turned to sparkling blue, crystal clear. And the vomiting girls were replaced by crystal clean, cerebral waters. He just wanted to know if you would come. If there was anything in your way. And that's what empty means, so much so. Because here's what we've discovered in this journey recently with Abide. Is if you want to reside on the mountain in the presence of God, that mountain is called the mountain of humility. And that's where God dwells. So that's my wife's story. It's Kim. Jonathan. Abiding Commentaries. We're out.